heat stress this morning, and just in America alone, this year they have an average over 600 deaths due to heat stroke alone, you know, and it is quite a long, animal, So I just wanted to give us just an overview to help us all going forward. So the question is, what is heat stress? And it says that heat stress is a buildup of heat in the body to the point where the body's thermostat has difficulty maintaining normal internal body temperature, right? And so it says that the body tries to keep a constant internal temperature, and the blood flow can control internal body temperature, but doesn't work well when outside air temperature is going up. So in other words, heat stress is when your body begins to overheat and kind of cool on itself, right? So then it goes into a feeling, and then it will eventually cause it to shut down if not taken. If you're one careful. Okay? That's right. So this is generally a diagram that shows you a balance where you have two heat sources, right? One is from the environment, and the other one talks about internal sources, your muscles. If you're any kind of physical work, then it creates heat, and as a result, your body starts to sweat to cool it down. Now, if you are not sweating, that means that you have a problem, and your body will eventually begins to overheat, and that can cause some serious problems. Okay, so it says some of the factors that are affecting the stress, right? So we have, you see there are a number of factors there, and one of these is, so we have age, right? The older it gets, it says that the ability to sweat decreases as we get older, right? So that is just one factor. The other one is medical. If you have any kind of sickness also, that can also affect your health as well. Also, if you have any poor physical condition as well, and alcohol as well. If you are always drinking alcohol, this will also affect your body. So you really have to try to maintain a balance. Okay? And the last point is clothing. The type of clothes you wear, especially during a hot day, can also affect you as well. So you have to try to maintain a balance and try to wear something lighter during hot days. Okay? I would say some of the causes and the symptoms of stress, right? So stress symptoms are a set of natural signals telling you that something needs to be done to balance your body's heating and cooling. And when a body temperature gets above 38 to 39 degrees Celsius, the brain starts to overheat, leading to a shutdown of your body's cooling system, and then just sweating stop, right? So you have to be able, you must get the signs that, hey, my body is overheating and I really need to do something to cool it down. For example, even when you have a fever, once your body temperature rises above 101, then you start feeling sick. And most times we want to take a cold shower to help to bring it down. Otherwise, once your body temperature starts going above 104 degrees, that means you are going to reach a state of serious or even fatal condition. So you already have to take some kind of measures, right? We're going to look at some of the illness that are caused by heat stress. And the first one we are seeing the causes of heat rash. So heat rush is also a cause of heat stress, and then you can cause the symptoms and the treatment. Okay. The next one we have is sunburn. Right. If you're exposed to long hours in the sun, then you will be exposed to sunburn. Okay. So then you have to be careful. The other one is heat cramps. Okay. Heat cramps. So you can also suffer from heat cramps if you are going through heat stress. So you really have to take care of that. The other one is fainting. Right, so that's when you're fluid loss and inadequate of fluid, then you eventually faint. Okay, so fainting is one of the ailments of heat stress. And you also have heat exhaustion as well. And the final one, which is deadly, is also heat stroke. You know, you can also suffer from heat stroke if your exposure, you know, to sunlight is very long. Okay. So we said that some of the, it says, how can we identify the hazard of heat stress, right? And one of the things we can do is do a risk assessment, right? For those of us who work indoors, we really have to assess the workplace and to check the heat stress level inside of the room. Or if you have guys who work outside in the field as well, you really have to do an assessment. If it is going to be a very hot day, then you make allowance, you know, whether the staff should wear some light clothing, or they take breaks, you know, so that the exposure to the sunlight can be reduced, you know. So we really have to take those things into consideration. The other option we have is something they call a wet wall temperature. That's if you have a type of tester, you can measure the heat stress that is in the atmosphere, you know. So that is just another option that we have as well to measure. And then when we look at heat stress and we look at the workload, so some workload is light, some is moderate, some is heavy, some is very heavy. So based on your workload level, you take the necessary action to protect yourself against heat stress. For example, here in DOMLEC, in some of our engine halls, the heat stress level is very high. So we have to advise the workers to take breaks more frequently because of the heat stress or the level in there. So likewise, you know, if you're also working up in the field, you take the same precaution and to guard yourself against heat stress because it can be fatal. Okay. And some of the controls we have there, the best control is how can we eliminate the heat stress. That is not being exposed to it. And most times that might not be, you know, the best option, but we have to work. So that might not be the most appropriate option. Okay. But then we have to decide what is the best option for ourselves, for the workers, you know. As I said before already, whether they work less hours in the sunlight, whether they wear like clothing, whether you provide for the means of cooling. Okay? So one option, so one option is that you can have a fan to help cool down the workplace or the environment, you know, to reduce the heat in that area. The next one. And then we saw the other one. You can use can drink more fluid to help your combat this stress. Okay. You can drink more water. You know. Okay. All right. And the last slide. And this is just giving you two scenarios where people see but dying because of heat stroke, being exposed to long hours of heat and not taking the necessary precaution. You know. eventually they died because of the stroke. So eventually, you know, once you are exposed to this heat stress, you already have the actions to combat it. Otherwise, as I said before, it can be fatal. So I hope that these few words will help to open your eyes, and when you go back to your various workplaces, you have to pass on this information to help us to work safer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Derek. Coming from this is to maintain a balance. You know, and just remember those persons who get intoxicated, sometimes it's difficult for them to maintain the balance. All right. Indeed, it's a pleasure to recognize the media, MO News. Thank you for being here. Members from various sections of our prime target groups for this forum are first responders, utility workers, ODM, planning division, city council, construction, workers and heavy equipment operators. We're expecting representatives from each of you. But I think it would be fitting to just acknowledge you, let us know whom you are as you represent your various groups. And also I would like to thank the DOMLEC team sitting here, Mr. Moses, Kimon, and the rest. Welcome. All right, so various sections. Can you tell us your name and what section you're representing?
All right, my name is Alvin Lewis, and I represent East Engineering as the electrical support technician.
Lovely.
I'm Josie Angela. I'm also with East Engineering. I am the Environmental Health and Safety Officer.
Marvelous.
My name is Pina Joseph. I'm representing Technical Summer Services, I'm a summer specialist.
My good friend.
Yeah, we can just deal with the contractors.
Lovely. Yeah.
Alex Stevenson, DOMLEC,
Lovely.
telecoms contractor.
Wonderful. Yes, sir.
Let's look at real Gibson Omega Technical Operations.
Do I still want it? Okay, all right.
Kyle Chris, environmental services.
It's run to the flow waste tech.
Brilliant.
Brian Roberts, the Wasco.
Yeah, building Gage, the school plant and instrument technician.
Lovely. Thank you very much and welcome each and every one of you again. Permit me to present Bernard Francis. Bernard has been a stalwart with us for many years. We imported him from another institution and we have grabbed him, and he's doing an exceptional job. This man has a vast knowledge on safety. He has embraced it so nicely, and the measures that he has implemented over the past years has really brought, light in our eyes to see beyond the horizon. I welcome Bernard Francis at this time.
Thank you very much, Edison. Good morning to everybody. Thanks for accepting the invitation. And just to kind of add to what Edison said, I appreciate the compliment, but obviously I can't do it on my own. And I have a team of dedicated employees, and they are at the back. Brandon Henry, who has been a stalwart as well in health and safety at DOMLEC for a number of years, providing that support to me and the rest of my team. And then we have Derek Visa, who is also the head of the safety moment. So again, I would just want to give credit to my team for their support. And they're there to provide support this morning. So again, I just want to say thanks for accepting the invitation. This is something that we wanted to do for a long time, to really get key stakeholders to collaborate with DOMLEC in certain aspects to make our environment a safer place. because we cannot do it alone. But the whole purpose really of this session is to, again, to create that awareness for our first responders, utility workers, and other persons or professionals who interact in one way or the other with our electrical distribution system. The whole purpose is really to save lives. And although we have you as our kind of our prime target group this morning, we also have persons who will be following us on social media. So it's really for the general public. But we are targeting you this morning because of the essential role that you play. And especially first responders who are, that's why they call first responders, because they, most times they're on the scene, they're the first persons on the scene, or they're called to the scene whenever there's an incident. So it's going to be a discussion, this is a forum, but we really want to ask of you if you have any concerns, questions, please feel free to ask us. We have 3 presenters this morning, so I'll be the first presenter. And I'm going to introduce myself. I say Donald Francis, but the Senior Health and Safety Officer at DOMLEC. So I'll be doing the first presentation, and then we have Mr. Paul Moses, who heads the Commercial Department, who will give a different perspective from the Commercial Department point of view. And then we have Timon John Baptist, who is our electrical engineer in ETNE. So we look forward to a very healthy discussion this morning. And of course, it's not just about, it's an awareness, so it's not like a training, but it's an awareness session. So we're just kind of scratching the surface on some of the issues. So we're hoping from this session, listen to what comes out from this session, then we can take it further. Right? So it all depends on the needs, right? We take it further. But this is just an awareness session. Everybody is just about 2 hours, so it's not going to be a very long session, but we're hoping that we could get a lot from this morning. So the key objectives, as I said, is to raise awareness and understanding of the general community and the prime target groups which we have here today about safety hazards associated with electrical distribution. We're also hoping to identify areas of risk and implement strategies to prevent incidents. So we're hoping that again that I can come out from this session. And this session really demonstrates DOMLEC's commitment to the safety of everyone interacting with our network. And that is clearly highlighted in our HSE policy. Alright? In our HSE policy, you notice to the right, it says we'll endeavor to protect the general public against safety environmental risks arising from its business activities. So that is one of our commitments under our HSE policy. And to also ensure effective communication of our safety program, our environmental program, with our members of the public, including yourself, contractors, stakeholders, and so on. So that is 2 areas of commitments that we have under HSE policy, which really targets the general public, apart from staff. So overhead power lines. So we're going to say overhead power lines, and why should we address this issue of overhead power lines? The thing about overhead power lines is that overhead power lines is kind of part of our overall landscape. It's just there out there. And sometimes persons don't even see it. Because especially when you operate heavy equipment, the sun might be in your eyes, might be distracted by something else, and you don't see those overhead lines. But those overhead lines, if we're not careful again, become contacted and they can cause serious injury to persons. So that's one of the reasons why we want to kind of focus on that. And as we said, the addressing this issue is to educate the public to recognize and avoid overhead electric lines. So that's what we're going to do right now. So who's at risk with breaching limits of approach? Now I heard we have persons there in building construction, right? And we have any heavy equipment operators there, but persons in building construction. We have persons who climb poles from the other utilities, diesel, flow. So all of them are crane operaters. We have them there. We have persons who work on elevated platform. We say construction workers, right? Persons who work on roof. Even persons who pick fruits on trees, because we have lines passing through trees, and persons who access those trees to pick, especially in your mango season, other mangoes. So you can know, I'm sure you will agree that the risk isn't high enough, right? Because we have a lot of lines passing through mango trees. So again, we want to educate persons, because persons see those lines there and they don't really understand the science behind the nature of these lines, and they might think that maybe just staying a few feet away they might be safe. But again, later in discussion we'll hear about limit of approach, safe limits of approach, right, which will basically underscore the importance of knowing what is the safe distance, right, from those lines in order that persons do not get injured. So these are the dangerous postal power lines. As I said, there are persons in the construction industry. So some of these things are obviously familiar. We have persons who telecoms, persons in telecommunications. They are also at risk. And so heavy equipment in general, so they are at risk. So we really want to kind of zoom in on these individuals, because again, these are overhead lines, and the persons will have proper judgment in terms of how they use the equipment, and are not aware of the clearance that is required from those lines. It can result in serious injuries. I know it's a small, let's say, do not approach or touch anything such as a vehicle, shoe, or pen that in contact with the power line. So even when the contact is made and persons touch these equipments that are now energized, it can cause some serious harm. So I just have another incident there I just want to, this is something that didn't happen in Dominica, but it's an incident that was shared with us some years ago. And it said the lower boom arm of this equipment came into contact with a power line. The power line was confirmed to house over 7,000 volts. The crossfire operator, notice what he did. He shut down the unit when contacting the pole on the lines. He then made an exit from the side boom, potentially putting himself in more danger due to the electrical power source coming in contact with the equipment. So the initial reaction when that happens, like actually this morning when I was preparing, I was setting up. That happens, so the first thing you should do is run, jump out of it and run. But the question is that the safe thing to do? No. Because that vehicle now becomes a path for that electric power, right? To ground. So going out of your vehicle is going to cause you, or may cause you more harm than good. Okay? So again, we are just saying this because we need persons to understand that. Because like I said, the initial reaction is, hey, there's a power line in my vehicle, I just want to get out, I want to run over. But by educating persons on the safe thing to do, then they may treat this differently, or if they're in this circumstance, treat it differently. So we have something called step potential. Alright? Now we'll go into that. Let's say we just kind of just only one way sessions, we're not going to go deep into it. But what this is showing is that once that equipment makes contact with the overhead line, it becomes energized. But not just the equipment. Okay, the ground. And that is talking about a few feet from that equipment becomes energized. But anybody that steps in that zone now has a great risk of electrocution. Alright? So that's what they call step potential. So persons, whenever the equipment is energized or makes contact with the overhead line, persons will stay far away as possible. Right? Far away as possible from that equipment. If they realize that happens. Now just to give you a better definition, or breakdown what it is when it's step potential. It says the voltage difference between a person's feet. Right? It is caused when current is flowing through the ground, resulting in a potential difference between 2 points on the ground. So as you move or the distance increases from the point of contact, the voltage gets less. But as you move, the difference between that foot and that foot, the difference there, the voltage is not going past through your leg to go to the other because of the potential between the both points, right? So that is what is called step potential. So what is advised is that whenever that happens, especially if you're in a vehicle, I'm going to get to that in a while, especially if you're in an area where there's a down power line, and you're in a vehicle and you're getting out of the vehicle, they say you shuffle away, or hop, right? Right, Pinat? Right? You shuffle up rather than walking. Because whenever you walk away, then again it increases the risk of electrocution. Right? So you shuffle away to keep the voltage potential at zero. Because every time you see you walk, because of the steps, because I said that it gradually increases. As you move ahead, the voltage decreases. So the point closer to contact is higher obviously, but as it goes further, that is why you are told to stay about maybe 30 feet away. Because by 30 feet away, you are at a much safer distance, right, from the point of contact. So the further away that you are from that energized equipment, this is safer for you. Now the things that are given in the persons, again, this is why we have this session, because persons may not know that. Because the public will not know that. One, there are down power lines after a storm, persons out on the street. I know one instance where, I think that Kim will explain to you more in terms of our protection on our system. Because whenever you have down power lines, it may just strip the system, but no system is perfect. So the more that we take precaution when we see those things that happen, is the better for us, right? So we talk about the step potential. Now there's also the touch potential, right? So the touch potential basically is the voltage between the energized object and the feet or the part of the person that is grounded. All right. So it takes the path of this resistance as well. So if you touch any energized object or equipment, obviously the power is going to find the path of this resistance and go to ground. So it's going to go to your body. Okay, so again, if there's any energized line, any energized equipment, if you have a down power line coming in contact with a fence, if it comes in contact with another individual, you need to stay far away from that person or even the fence. You should not touch any object that down energized line comes in contact with. Alright? And this is important for persons like the first responders, like the fire department, persons in police, because these are our first responders, and it's important that they are aware of that. And I'm sure through their training that they will know of these precautionary measures to take, right, in order to, so that they will become a victim, right? So it's important that they will follow this when they are called for any emergency. So what is the message here? So we touched on some of it. Overly electric lines may cause serious injury or death if contacted, right? Again, maintain required safety clearances from these facilities. So we're talking about any object, whether it's the equipment, whether it's the down line is touching a fence or even an individual, you have to maintain a required safety clearance. Be vigilant when using ladders, scaffolds, and long tall tools and equipment in the vicinity of overhead lines. Now, because of my job, I have had to respond to situations where persons come in contact with our overhead lines, right, on construction, especially on construction sites. And the thing is, the building itself, the top of the building may have sufficient clearance on overhead lines, but by the time you take a steel rod in your hand, you now reduce that's limit of approach. And that is the issue that we've had in many instances, right? Where persons may be, again, a safe distance from the line, standing on the top of the building, but when they have to move around material, then they come in contact. We've had instances where when DOMLEC staff, we have what we call a stop work process of organization where we can stop the work, any employee can stop the work of a contractor if they deem it unsafe. Any contractor, when I mean contractors that contracted in DOMLEC, they can stop the work if they deem that work to be unsafe. So if I'm driving by and I see one of our contractors working in an unsafe manner, I can stop the work. Alright? We, as a utility, anywhere we're driving or we're moving around the island and we notice that there is imminent danger with our red lines, we can come on that side and issue a stop report to the contractor until DOMLEC can come and make it safe for them to continue to work. Right? We have done that a number of times. We had a similar an incident some time ago where a stop order was issued, and lo and behold, the contractor, or they said the construction worker, just to be clear, was contracted, but his contractor really was a construction site. Though agreeing that the situation was indeed a dangerous one, continued a week after on that job, even after that construction was going to stop the job or the project. And what happened? An employee got serious breaks by making contact with our overhead line. How he managed to survive, I don't know. You're talking about 11,000 roads. Shut down maybe half of those. Right? We lost power. Now, again, whenever DOMLEC comes on the side and stops the road, it's simply because they're approaching a limited approach. Simply limited approach. Right? And remember, we're doing that so that we can make it safe for the work to continue. So we're not just stopping the work, and some persons just think they will see an issue with this and they want to continue the work. No, all this can be avoided if proper planning, meaning that if, and DOMLEC has that, we have ads going on the radio all the time, that if persons are building and they notice that there is any overhead line in the way, that they can come and report to DOMLEC, and then DOMLEC will come obviously and try to make this more advise them on how they can continue with safety. Okay? There are times, many times it's happening, but there are still a number of times that this is not being adhered to. Okay? And while maybe some persons are not getting injured, but the fact is that there is a potential risk right there where persons can get. And as I said, the job, the professional in, I've been called a number of times on sites. Some of my guys can tell you that, where persons have made contact with overhead lines, simply, again, failing to realize or recognize, I should say, sorry, the hazards associated with the overhead lines. Right? So, again, that is what this program is about, just to, again, advise persons, especially those in the construction industry, persons using heavy equipment, operators and equipment operators, the safe approach whenever they are, working close to our lines. Now we have persons there from, as I said, from the different utilities, and like the persons, those in the telecommunications, who climb the poles, and it's important again that they are aware of the hazards while they're in the pool. Okay? It's important because all of them share the poles with us, and obviously, the same hazards that we're exposed to when we climb the pool, they're also exposed to. Right? Although, again, there's a certain distance they have to, we work a lot closer sometimes to when it has the real hazard than they, but the point is that the fact that they're the DOMLEC poles, they are hazards associated with just being on that pole, and they need to be aware of all those hazards. And keep on in this later on, we'll touch on that. But call DOMLEC to make safe perimeter, people must work near this facility. So again, we know that persons required to work, they need to continue their work, and So we're just advising persons to just call down like and they can come in to ensure that the work can continue safely. Sometimes it means the work might have to shut down for sometimes 2 weeks, right? Because it may require shifting lines in most cases. And that's why you see that all that can be avoided if DOMLEC is notified early enough, because you have to do estimates, we have to get right of way to transfer lines or poles, and there's a cost associated with that as well. Alright? So that's why it's advisable that persons notify us early in advance. You're going to build 2 stories up or 3 stories up. Sometimes some persons say there's 1 story in the building, that's fine, but a year down the road they decide to go up. Right? So even if you know at that point that you have intentions of going up in the next 2 or 3 years, it's a good time to let us go in at that stage. Because as I said that, remember we're talking about transfer of poles and transfer of lines and all this kind of thing, getting right of way, that may take some time. And I've seen projects had to stop for almost a month because we had to put those things in place to ensure that we can continue safely. So again, all that can be avoided if we have the prior notification. Yeah. So overhead electric lines are not insulated. Contacting or getting too close to one with your body equipment or close to results in therefore serious injury. So if you talk about all those high tension lines that we see already, these are their conductors. So once you get too close, persons can get electrocuted. We have some measurements in terms of distance. The working ladders along tools, they are 10 feet away from the overhead power lines. If you're unsure of the voltage, then you need to contact us, alright? Because persons may see certain lines passing over and they're not sure what the voltage is, they're not aware of it. And so let's call down, let us come in, let us assess the situation so we can advise you how to continue safely around those lines. And for cranes and booms and so on, at least 20 feet away from the line, to know again what the line voltage is. Always assume, and electricians, we have electricians there. That's the guiding principle, right? Or golden rule if you want. Always assume that the line is energized unless you have confirmed with DOMLEC that the line has been de-energized. So we always treat a dead line like it's live. And that's a guiding principle for any electrician. Right? So we spoke about that. As the voltage increases, the clearing distances also increase. And again, you can just contact DOMLEC for guidance on that. So how can we work safely with regards to overhead lines? A planned project is a safe project. And I was talking about earlier about the building, constructing, apartments or whatever it is. If you plan properly, in terms of contacting utilities beforehand, then we can avoid a lot of those on some of the misfortunes, I should say, that sometimes occur when these things are done. So check the job site for hazards and know the location of all overhead power lines. So even when you're from scratch, you come to prepare your foundation and everything. First thing you need to do is check, look up. Let's just say look up and leave. So look up, see whether there are any overhead power lines in your area of work, so that again preparations can be made to ensure that you can continue that construction safely. A lot of times you see some buildings going up, and you notice some of our lines actually touching the sides of the building, and okay, you see sometimes they put in stakes or poles to whoever power line trying to continue with it. Right? So we see all those things happening out there. And these are the things that we wish would not happen. And that is why, again, we are very depending on persons like the construction workers who are there, the supervisors, the managers who are there, so that they can ensure that their employees are well informed and are working safely on their projects. So we talk about that already, what consider overhead lines energized. Hold a pre-work safety meeting and point out areas where overhead lines and electric equipment are located. So even when you, we have done that, we have what we call a tailgate discussion. before any project, the team comes together and they discuss the hazards, the associated hazards with that particular task, ensuring that you have the right controls in place to protect the employees. So there's a little discussion beforehand. So even you, with some of you maybe have a crew, some of you managing employees, you could incorporate that. Hold what you call a pre-work safety meeting and discuss the hazards associated with the job. Alright? And that's a requirement for any contractor that has to work with DOMLEC. They have to adhere to or conform to our contractor safety program. And this is part of it, where you must hold discussion 5 to 7 minutes in the morning or before any work, any task, to discuss the hazards of that particular task. So you look at each step, you discuss the hazards, and then you ensure that you have the proper controls. Controls meaning PPE. Derek spoke about some controls. He spoke about, some of you may know about elimination, substitution, controls, and so on, administrative controls, and so on. So you go through the different steps and see, ensure that you have the right controls, whether you have the PPEs, you have the right persons for the job. The persons you have the job are the properly trained to carry out that job. Right? And just to give you an example of the situation I explained about that individual that got severely shot. That individual wasn't part of that project. That individual wasn't even on the project when we did that stop work order. So he was called in, so he wasn't aware of the hazards. And he was the one who actually got impacted. Okay? He was the one. So again, hold a pre-work safety meeting and point out areas where overhead lines are actually located. So we're talking about persons on the construction site, but even persons that are climbing over poles, the flows and the DG cells, and you understand? Even before you climb that pole, you need to do your own risk assessment. Alright? So that is one of the that's a safe approach. So how can DOMLEC help? We can confirm the voltage, the overhead line, whatever overhead line does there. We can confirm the clearance. We can confirm the height. We can provide safety guidance around the power lines. We can even trim trees if it interferes with the voltage distribution lines around the project. And this is identify the best and safe solution. So again, it's called DOMLEC. So DOMLEC can give you a safe advice or good advice to take a safe approach for any of your activities or your tasks. Alright? So again, we can help you to confirm the voltage, confirm the clearance, confirm the height, and also provide safety guidance for you. Emergency situation, so what do you do if in the event that there is an emergency or somebody comes in contact with the overhead line? You could call for 911, we know is emergency line, but you can also call DOMLEC at 811, that's our hotline. Right? Immediately remain, earlier we spoke about if somebody is in that equipment and it becomes energized, what do they do? Remain in the equipment until utility workers arrive to the energizer line. So if it is safe for you to remove the equipment, that is fine, because maybe it might just be a little contact and it's just reversing or shifting to the side or whatever to release that contact. But if it's not safe to do so, then the individual should remain in the vehicle. Remain in the vehicle until help arrives. Okay, so we call, as I said, we call 911, first responders will respond, so we can call DOMLEC so that they can be energized the line. One others to stay away. And we spoke about the clearance again. Persons to stay at least 30 feet or so away from an energized equipment, right? Machinery. So one others, if anybody's coming towards you and whether it's a vehicle or whether it's one of the heavy equipment operators, one others to stay away, right? If you must leave the equipment because of fire, so in case that there's a fire, again we spoke about the jumping, You jump up with your feet together, ensuring that you do not make contact with the equipment and the ground at the same time. Because once you make contact with the engine, the current going to take that path to ground. That's why you can get seriously injured. Okay, so you could jump with your feet together, you jump, or you shuffle. But once you walk, then you just giving the, again, voltage, the opportunity to go through your body and then causing harm to you. Okay? So that's to go through down power lines. Now, we spoke about overhead lines, but down power lines, why should we address this issue? Now again, we have the first responders again, who are there, and they're normally the first persons on the scene when there's an emergency. But we address this issue because high winds, lightning strikes, floods, branches, they fall on our lines and bring down the lines. Vehicles strike the utility poles. And among times when there's a power outage, persons may feel it's DOMLEC that just took the power. Alright, but there are a lot of instances is persons coming in contact with your poles and therefore it brings down the system. Alright? So, and power lines may come down along with telephone and cable TV lines, both of which may become energized. Okay, so even if someone might see what is, there's a telephone line, it's safe to touch it or shift it. We again need to be aware of the surroundings because if the power line came down those lines, it's possible that those telecommunications lines may now become energized, right? So the message, if there's a down power line, so contact with energy down utility lines whenever objects may cause serious injury, you know that. Down lines, that's important. Down lines may be energized even if they don't hum or spark. So sometimes persons might use that, may look for that, right? That sign, or to determine whether that line is energized. So you may look for humming, you may look for sparking, but even in the absence of that, you're saying that the lines will be energized. So the safest thing to do is just to stay away, stay as far as possible, and contact 911 or call DOMLEC to report when those things do happen. And normally, as we said, after a storm, you find that is when we have those situations are more frequent after a storm, and you have down lines and so on because of falling trees and mudslides and all this kind of things. So I'm just going to show the video as you see the plays. The short video is what maybe a minute and a half. When lines come down on an occupied vehicle, mention it, but visual does have a lot of impact. So let's see if this works.
There's no way around it. Accidents happen. Would you know what to do if your vehicle crashed into an electric utility pole? While it may seem far-fetched, every year, tens of thousands of accidents occur when utility poles are struck by vehicles and other large equipment. Let's review. There's no way around it. Accidents happen. Would you know what to do if your vehicle crashed into an electric utility pole? While it may seem far-fetched, every year, tens of thousands of accidents occur when utility poles are struck by vehicles and other large equipment. Let's review what you should and should not do if you find yourself in this situation. The safest place for passengers after a collision with the utility pole is inside the vehicle, which acts as a path for the electrical current to reach the ground. You are safe inside the vehicle, but if you get out, you could be electrocuted. If your car hits a utility pole and brings down a power line, stay in your vehicle and wait until help arrives and power lines have been de-energized. Call your electric utility or 911 for emergency assistance. You should only exit the vehicle if a fire occurs, which is rare. If this happens, jump out and away from the vehicle, making sure no part of your body or clothing touches the ground and the vehicle at the same time. Land with both feet together and in small, shuffling steps, move at least 40 feet away from the vehicle to safety. The ground could be energized, so by keeping your feet together and shuffling away, you decrease the chance of electrical current entering your body through one foot and out the other. It's also worth noting what to do if you witness an accident involving down power lines. If you see an accident like this, remain in your vehicle. Remember, the ground could be energized. Call the local electric utility or 911 to ensure help is on the way. When a collision with the utility pole occurs, most people are not thinking about electricity, but knowing what to do and what not to do could be the difference between life or death. We hope you never find yourself in this situation, but if you do, remember these safety tips to avoid electrocution. For more electrical safety tips and information, contact your local electric utility.
Alright, so we spoke about that already, about the downpour lines. So that's briefly on the ground damage prevention. So that is, we talked about excavation, and so it says damage prevention is a critical topic for the general public and excavation contractors. Striking underground electric facilities while digging or boring may result in serious electrical contact injuries. And in addition to that, it can also disrupt service and also come with unnecessary repair and restoration costs. Again, in my job, we've been called situations where during excavation work that contact was made with underground lines. Close calls too, right? So again, if any project site that you're on, those who may be involved in excavation, call DOMLEC, not just DOMLEC, even other utilities. You have water, you have besides DOMLEC, you have also persons and the water school, the water lines, and the passing on to them. So we need to call them first, so that we can again provide some guidelines, some safety guidelines, and then we will provide information whether or not that we have where the lines may be passing. Because if you notice that there's underground cable, then you need to call them so that we can come and ensure that there's enough clearance for you to provide some guidelines so that you could proceed. All right, because that again can really result in some serious injuries. Because especially when they make contact with the front lines and then the equipment becomes energized, that in itself puts persons at serious risk. So again, excavating, trenching, leveling, pegging sticks, whatever it is, just contact them there so that they can provide some guidelines and give proper clarity for it to continue. So just to coming close to the end. So just some guidelines as we go forward again, and good reminders, some safe approaches. Perform a scene survey. So again, just remember we're talking about working close or coming in contact with or interacting before high voltage line. Perform a scene survey. So wherever you are, whatever site you're on, perform a scene survey and determine whether the equipment is involved or is in close proximity. Alright? Again, that is precautionary measures to avoid any contact with our lines, right? So we spoke about that a while ago. Most of you may know that we talk about hazard recognition, we talk about the risk assessment, and so on, and taking action. So assess the potential hazards, do not become a casualty, look for things which may cause you harm, any wires, structures, equipment exposed, or is package conductors, right? So perform a scene survey and assess the potential hazards. Take control, so put things in place so that others don't get it. And then, as part of your control measure, you determine what PPE that you require to proceed with your work. Treat all power lines as energized, adhere to the limits of approach, do not take unnecessary risks, and wait for DOMLEC to make the power line safe. Alright? So, it's some good advice, and it will only, only be for your benefit if you follow this advice. And it's a proven to work because this is basically what we do every day at DOMLEC before we go on any high risk task, that we ensure that we go through the same steps that we are advising you to do. And this is what basically is helping us to maintain the kind of record that we have in terms of our performance, our safety performance at DOMLEC. And then keep others away, so communicate with others about the dangers, whether you have to talk or shout, or even barriers to prevent persons from coming close in contact. So, for instance, if we arrive on the scene, that is what we'll do. We'll keep persons away and say the very barriers of rules to keep persons away from the danger. And the same will happen with the police, or the same will happen with the fire. Then they will tell you the same thing, that they, to keep persons safe, they will follow the area to ensure that persons are coming close proximity. So in summary, electricity is essential, but it poses a risk. We pose risk. Stay away from power lines, avoid being in close proximity to energized equipment, adhere to the limits of approach. So you need to know what it is. If you don't know what it is, then again you can ask us to come in and advise you as to what this is with safely with approach. Right? So you need to know what it is. Alright, so that basically is the end of my presentation. Anybody have any questions before we move on to commercial? Everything square? Everybody not ready? Yes, Peter.
What do you consider safe distance from a football building?
Alright, so that's a very good question, Pina. And the man I'm going to answer that question for you will be Kimon, because Kimon is going to have some nicer, I think some image up there that will show you the distance, the safe distance from a building. So, that's what I know.
Another question.
Yeah.
If a line is too close to a building and it has to be removed or diverted, I would believe that there's a cost. Is that a cost to a customer, or DOMLEC does it at? This has a good Samaritan.
I don't know if the commercial man is there. But you can answer that question for sure. Alright? So, you don't want to know that question. Because I know there are instances where, because customers have to pay. I mean, DOMLEC absorbs the cost, right? They absorb a percentage of the cost, but the customer also has to make part of that cost as well.
And it depends on what line. If it's roadside, DOMLEC will just shift it to an appropriate location.
But that situation is basically if a building, if a new building is going up and there's a DOMLEC line already in that location. But not where a DOMLEC run a line across someone's building, right?
Okay.
I'm just asking.
Well, it depends. It depends, because you can have a line that was there originally in the inception, and we will carry out a survey to determine the next course of action. That's the best way to answer it. And whatever has to be done will be done in due course.
Because I'm just looking at it, if there was a building there already and there's a DOMLEC line on top there, whether a 10 feet rod or just a human passing under there, it's already a hazard.
If I may, and maybe Kimon, when he presents, he might provide some more information on that.
Okay.
But the T&D team, the transmission and distribution team, engineering as well, they will make an assessment. If they determine that there is a risk, health and safety risk, DOMLEC may, well, maybe not me, DOMLEC will absorb the cost of moving the lines. But what happens, as he said, sometimes there was no risk there before, and somebody goes and constructs and gets close to the line. That will be at the customer's cost, because it costs DOMLEC to have to move lines, poles from one location to another. It will be at the customer's cost, but we have a scale to determine how that cost is shared. It's a shared cost. The first 1,750 of the cost is borne by DOMLEC, and everything above that is shared in a certain ratio, and the ratio increases as the total cost of making that transfer goes up. Okay, so the general principle is the relocation of poles and lines is at the customer's cost, but a determination will be made as to whether there's a health and safety risk prior to the construction work. And if there is, the DOMLEC will absorb all the costs. If not, it is shared between DOMLEC and the customer.
Yeah, well, he did answer that question. When my house is constructed, there is overhead power lines right over my room. And thinking of it, this could be a risk in terms of if you have down power lines, they fall directly on my roof. So this was one of my concerns in terms of the overhead power lines as well.
These are the high voltage lines coming up. High voltage lines.
Connecting straight to a transformer right outside my house. That's in Shuffle.
Okay, good morning to everyone. It's not a question, but it's just some additional information based on presentation that was given. Each and every one here interacts with DOMLEC network system. We talk from DOASCO to contractors, not forgetting line and flow, and even the fire department. All right, all interact with DOMLEC network system. One of the things we have to understand in our interaction or business that the risk that poses itself and the vulnerabilities. And I'm saying that to tell you that with quite a bit of information was given, but what I'm giving is just some additional information as to some of the risks in terms of the whole structure. Many times construction is being done and excavation is being undertaken. And you find that the stay wires as well as the poles are being undermined, compromising the construction of the network system. And when that happens, also there are times when equipment make contact with the poles and the lines, and there is not a direct threat immediately, but later on, that's where the risk comes, when the structure is compromised. And you will find that later on, the pole actually leads further, and the general public is at risk, because that line is compromised. And even sometimes directly, when there is a contact with the poles or even stay wire, the lines may come down and the general public is at risk of the danger which the line poses. So I want to bring this to your attention so that you can be very mindful during your operations to ensure that if you compromise the pole or the steel wire or network system in any way, one way or the other, it's important to reach out to DOMLEC and inform DOMLEC of the situation, because many times DOMLEC is not aware of what is happening out there, and the general public is at risk. And your family, your children, everyone is at risk. And if this is not dealt with in a timely manner, you never know what can happen. So to avoid all of that, it's important to reach out to DOMLEC we let DOMLEC know what is the situation and DOMLEC can deal with it. There is also quite a bit of underground system as part of our network system, and sometimes people, all they see is the overhead lines, not taking into consideration that there's also underground lines. We're not talking only about the city, but also right now, almost all the government apartment buildings have underground systems. So even during an excavation, all of these things, it's very important to be mindful of that. Get DOMLEC involved, even help you to identify the lines or work alongside with you to ensure the safety of yourself, your employees, and the general public. Another area we want to touch on is the area of touch point, especially with the contractors. Not forgetting, as I said, all of us interact with the system one way or the other. And one of the important things to ensure that we have at all times is proper insulated shoes. Many times you pass on the construction site and see people with slippers, bare feet, and you may ask yourself, what is the risk? But one life is too much to lose. And there are a lot of things that we can do to prevent someone from losing their life by ensuring that they are properly equipped for the work that they're doing. Up to last week, I went to a work site, and the operator told me he's operating the equipment. Why should he be using a hand hat? That comes back to touch point. The equipment is at risk with the network. It could be on the ground overhead or whatever, and there's other risk. You may say, I do not need a helmet, but the helmet is one of the most important PPE in all of the PPEs, especially for electrical hazards. Because what you may find is that electricity needs a way in and it needs a way out. The path that the electricity takes may be the difference between life and death. And one of the paths that you should always try to avoid is that the path is not for your head. And that is why you have the helmet to protect you. Because if your head is in contact with any area that can be a path to ground, it can be the entry or the exit, and it goes through your brain. 99% of the time. We know the story, right? So it's important to protect your head. Even when you may think that there's not even a danger, but the helmet and the insulated shoes, two of the PPEs we should also always ensure that we have. Because if we have an insulated shoe, it may be the lifesaver for us to ensure that the current doesn't find a path to ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon.
Can I ask the gentleman a question?
Okay, go ahead. And after you will
Now you mentioned about underground cabling. Do DOMLEC have proper signage to let somebody know that there's very cable on the ground?
Okay, we have Mr. George Boss and also Mr. Kimon. Those are the areas of
Somebody is the yes, well, you will not be able to see it externally, but if you do an excavation, you will encounter the caution tape. There's two levels of caution tape. The first level is somewhere about 2 feet above before the surface, and then maybe another 2 feet further down for encounter the caution tape, and then sandbathing, and then your docks with the cables in there.
Okay, I'm just referring to above, not under. What are you talking about? That's basic.
Yeah. But no, we haven't.
Don't get me to put that in the safety.
what that creates is now environmental issues, right? Because we have to be mindful of, environmental, maybe resolving one problem, but then there comes a litany of environmental issue. So again, it all depends on the law and the standards. What does the standard require? And how far can we go in, prevention or in control?
All right, thank you very much, Senior Health and Safety Officer Bernard, for this wonderful presentation. Again, a planned project is a safe project. Long and short story based on analyzing your presentation. Very well done. Our commercial manager will be next in line. He is Mr. Paul Moses. He will explain our smart metering systems, explain what is pilferage, and a few other areas. Let us make him welcome as he comes to present.
Good morning all. Thank you, Edison. I want first of all to acknowledge the assistance of two members of our team, that is Daniel Massicot. He provided the material on pilferage, and Kurt Salfra, who is not here, he provided the material on smart metering. Okay, Bernard, if you could just go through the presentation. So I'll deal with smart metering first. It is a system, as it says, that allows you to remotely monitor and manage energy usage in real time, unlike the old meters. Principally then, the customer was interested in what the meter read at the particular time, what they could see on the face of the meter. And I know there are some customers who will compare when their bill is received, they compare to what they read on the meter. Smart metering goes beyond that. You can access the information because it's all technology. You can go online. In fact, let me use the opportunity to invite some of you who are here and your family members to register for our online access to your metering information. We have the Postmate portal. You can pay right where you sit. You can purchase power and you can pay your bills online. And it has those online facilities. They have this, because of the smart metering, you can access information. You can see live, as it were, or close to live as possible, the movement of your consumption, even from a distant point. So the smart metering system has that facility. It provides accurate and timely data on energy consumption. We have situations, for example, where people question their bill. They see what looks like a rise, a sudden rise in their consumption, and they question it. And they question our meters and say the meters are faulty. And almost in every situation, I do allow for situations where a meter may have gone bad or malfunction. But in almost every situation, when we do our checks, it is consumption that the consumer had, the customer, and never realized it. I recall clearly a case where a man wrote to us and he said that something had to be wrong with his meter because his bill went up so high. When we did our check, we got load profile information data, and when we did our checks, what we found out is that the consumption, using the same smart metering technology, we found out that the peak in consumption was happening at a particular time. It was happening somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning. And when we questioned the gentleman, what we found out is that his son used to get up in the morning to study, and he would put on the AC in his room. The old man is asleep and he had no idea. So as far as he's concerned, he himself is not using anything more than normal. But his son was up in the morning for 2-3 hours consuming. So the system gives us that facility to query our data and to find out what is happening. So this is bullet point number 3. It has advanced analytics to provide insights into energy usage and pattern. So it actually has, when you go there, you can see the graphs that tell you how your consumption is going, when it dips, when it goes up. And we can give you advice as to maybe, and then based on our interaction with you, we can find out what particular appliances that you may be using at certain times that causes your consumption to peak. So it enables utilities to identify and address issues quickly, just as I referred to, reducing downtime and maintenance costs. We don't always have to send somebody to the meter to extract the information. We can get it in-house. The real-time consumption data helps customers make informed decisions on their energy usage. As I said, if you have your register for online facilities, you can actually see the graphs, the patterns of your consumption. So you know that on Saturdays, when you look on a particular Saturday, your consumption is peaking. You realize that you are using your washing machine more, you are using certain appliances like your blenders more. So it helps you make smart decisions in terms of usage. The metering system is scalable. It can apply to different consumption levels. So residential customer, it will take care of your consumption. For a big customer, industrial customer, it can be scaled to meet the particular load need of that customer. It is compatible with a wide range of communication technologies because it's a modern device, so it interacts with Wi-Fi, cellular, LAN communication devices. There is that myth. I mentioned a situation where a customer came in and was querying his bill. There's another one. Pay-as-you-go customers, a number of them seem to think they are being charged more for the pay-as-you-go service because they top up $5 and you say, well, it finished so fast. What they don't realize is that maybe at some point when you topped up $5, it lasted you longer. Your consumption pattern was different during that time. The other time when you top up $5, maybe the time you use your blender a little more, you washed a little more often. So you cannot simply determine the consumption based on the amount of power you bought. You have to look at what activities you were engaged in at that particular time. Because it is not a different meter for pay-as-you-go as it is for postpaid. It is the same meter. So the consumption, that myth that the pay-as-you-go customers are being charged more, that is indeed a myth, because the tariff is the same for both. Electricity pilferage now. In some jurisdictions, they refer to it as tampering, because in reality, the customer goes and tampers with the equipment of the utility in such a way that they either reduce the amount of consumption that is registered on the meter or eliminate it totally. So what is pilferage, electricity pilferage? It is the illegal diversion or abstraction of electricity in such a way as to bypass the meter with the intent to avoid paying for electricity consumed. I want to focus on the word there, illegal, because the Electricity Supplies Act of Dominica, Act number 10 of 2006, it mentions this illegal activity. Section 81 of that act, under the heading stealing electricity, it says, if any person without legal rights, the proof of which shall be upon him, abstracts or causes to be abstracted, or diverts or causes to be diverted any electricity, or consumes or uses any such electricity, knowing the same to have been wrongfully or unlawfully abstracted or diverted, the person commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000 and 12 months imprisonment. Pilferage is an illegal activity, and if you're found guilty of it, be prepared to pay $5,000 and to take 12 months jail. What some customers, actually I recall a case where we had gone to investigate what looked like pilferage. Because we can monitor from the office the same smart metering system. We can see the patterns of consumption. And then we may find a situation where a customer's consumption suddenly dips or goes to zero. So we get exception reports, and then we go out to investigate. And so we find out in a particular case, when we went to investigate, that particular customer, his property was fenced, the meter was on the inside, and you know what he did? He had a bag of some Rottweiler. So the DOMLEC staff could not access the meter because the bad dog was there. You know, the law also provides for obstruction of DOMLEC workers when they go to investigate, not just pilferage, but they want to do their normal work. I'll just read the particular clause of the Act. Section 80. Offense of obstructing the licensee. The Act refers to the utility as the licensee. There is an offense in obstructing the licensee from doing his work. Any person who, without due cause, obstructs or attempts to obstruct a licensee in the performance of any of the powers conferred on it by this Act, including going to investigate a possible pilferage, commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000 and 6 months imprisonment. So those that are engaged in pilferage and try to hide that fact by preventing access, whether through a fenced locked area, whether through back doors or any other means, the law says you commit an offense. It also provides for, and I'll not read it, but I'll reference the section, so in your free time, because those acts are available online, you can go to the government website and you can get those acts. Section 82 speaks of criminal liability for damage and prima facie evidence thereof. That is, if it provides for where it is seen that a line is either redistributed or it is installed in such a way to bypass the meter that that person cannot, the actual consumption is not registered by the meter, the law says that this is illegal. If you go to the next slide. So we spoke of pilferage. In the case of pilferage, the meter doesn't register any consumption, so that person does not pay. So DOMLEC is cheating. We don't get our money for the actual electricity consumed. In the case of redistribution, the meter does register the consumption. But what the person does, this particular property is metered. The person has a workshop somewhere in the back, and so he runs a line to the workshop. And we'll see the risk involved in this. So redistribution is the illegal diversion of metered electricity. So DOMLEC is not, in a sense, defrauded, in the sense that we still that electricity gets paid for. But it is the illegal diversion of metered electricity from the property or structure that is metered to receive it to another to facilitate that other receiving power. Next slide. The hazards associated with that, we spoke earlier on of insulation, poor insulation, poorly insulated or protected lines. I recall a case, Mr. Massicott is here, we had gone to investigate a possible pilferage, and we saw one situation where a line was run from one building across a road, and it's in that community there's a smaller side road. So it's not a road that is used by the general public on a day-to-day basis. It's just for that dwelling area. So there is traffic, but just the people living in that area. And the line, they dug a little trench across the road, not very deep, covered it with some concrete. I think that line went down just a few inches, covered it with a little concrete. But because of the cars, the traffic, though it was not as heavy as a public road, but because of the constant traffic and the low depth of the trench, over time, the concrete that was on some portions of it began to wear out. And a portion of the line was exposed. And the insulation, you could see wear and tear on the insulation. And this was happening because in a particular driveway, we noticed a car park and we realized that every time that car came up, it was wearing out the line. And that could have caused it was a hazard, and it could have caused serious injury, even to somebody walking barefooted or with shoes that are not properly insulated. So this is one of the hazards. Properly insulated or unprotected lines. Lines and supporting apparatuses installed where persons could make contact with them. And we'll see later why, because the people, they know it's an illegal activity. They take shortcuts to get that power redistributed or to steal the power, and so they do not pay attention to the hazards. Which is the point I'm making there. Those undertaking that work may not be aware. Or even if they are aware, they give very little regard, because sometimes it's not the person living in the house that does it, he gets an electrician to do it for him. And that electrician is not so bothered about the risk. All he knows is getting paid for doing something. So they pay very little regard to the hazards involved. And because of the need to conceal that illegal activity, they overlook some of the safety practices that ought to be in place. The associated risk, electrical shock, electrocution itself, when the person suffers death, as a result, severe burns, and electrical fires. How does it affect others? The risk that I pointed out earlier, you have a line that is not properly insulated. A little child playing in the yard walks on that exposed line and gets electrocuted. So it affects others, the risk that I identified earlier on. Possible equipment damage to third parties from surges. Mascot is there, he may want to shed some information on that, but we do have cases where customers come to us saying that there was a fault on DOMLEC system that caused some equipment in their home, in their garage, to get damaged. And they come to us. What we have found out when we have investigated some of those things, it is some third party, somebody maybe who redistributed power from his house to a workshop where he has some heavy equipment. At the time DOMLEC sized the transformers, they had not made provision for that additional load. And so that causes surges on the system, and it may blow the equipment, appliances of parties that had nothing to do with the redistribution or with the pilferage. Mascot, you want to add anything here? More work to the staff of DOMLEC to help. I mentioned earlier on cases where we had to go out. Obviously, I'm not a technical person, but sometimes I have to go out with Mascot on those investigations just to get a sense of what people do out there. So it takes from our time we could have spent doing other things. It takes from our time to investigate this work. I said that pilferage, redistribution, these are illegal activities, and so we involve the police in many situations. Our policy gives us some level of discretion as to which cases that we should, well, not so much which cases we should, but we exercise discretion when we look at a particular case. One of the reasons for that is, the legal system in Dominica, which is the second bullet point, court process, is very, very slow. By the time that case gets called, 2 years may have passed. So sometimes it is in DOMLEC's best interest to deal with that out of the court if that possibility arises. Even getting response from the police, we may be on the scene. There's a particular case I know of in a particular community. A customer has called on a number of occasions to tell us there is this thing happening. Some person running a line across the road to a workshop on the other side, illegal redistribution. And every time we have gone to investigate, we don't find the line. Because the person seems to be doing that something like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and so on, when everybody else is asleep. Even in cases where we go and we find the evidence, we can see the illegal line, we can see that the meter was bypassed, and we call the police. You know the story as well. They may be engaged, they say a lot of the times they're understaffed. That may well be the case, that the vehicle assigned to them has been redeployed to a different site, and they have to wait on the vehicle. In the process, sometimes we just decide, okay, we will not pursue the legal avenue because we can't even get the police to come and see the evidence. So the response from the police is not always timely, and the court process is slow. So this is it for smart metering and our pilferage, electricity pilferage or tampering. If you have any questions, feel free to ask at this point, or any contributions you wish to make. I see three hands you are putting there. I'll tell you my challenge. The ladies that was not first. Protocol says that the ladies was first. Okay. In as much as I'll tell you why I let you go first. He's asked the question before. Let's have it.
So my question is, you said in cases where consumption goes down to zero or almost nothing, you go and investigate. What if it's the opposite and someone bill goes all the way up? Do we investigate with the same speed or haste?
Well, we investigate as long as there is what looks like an irregularity in the consumption pattern. I mentioned what we refer to as exception report. An exception report is an alert that the system gives us if a particular, the pattern of consumption of a particular customer deviates drastically from what it used to be. If you used to be consuming at that level, and suddenly, your example, it goes very high, or it goes down, we will investigate with the same speed, whether it is high or less down.
Actually, it's quite an area, and this is one area that's been priority. I consumption, and I think you guys say, every time you see this one, make sure this one is done, because they have benchmarks. And if I don't give you a specific time or specific periods, there's a map, and it's set for me, and I have those points. So I actually already give this priority.
And I'm glad you said that, because we are regulated by the IRC, the Independent Regulatory Commission, and it has established certain standards in terms of customer service that we have to meet. And one of them has to do with investigating those matters. We have a certain number of days within which to investigate and resolve. So all the more reason, law imposes a duty on us to act quickly. Yes.
Okay, so my question is, if you do monitoring on individual home, like residential home, do you have a number you can call directly to find out the results of that monitoring? So you come to the site, you set up your equipment to do the monitoring as to what are the terms of high consumption or low consumption, whatever the case. If the person complains of a high light bill, what is the contact number you can call to find out
the DOMLEC contact?
Yes,
the DOMLEC
of that
Edison?
Yeah, normally if it's a situation where a customer makes a complaint, we take the customer's number and call them with the result. So if the situation the customer is calling, they can call 255-6024, 255-6012, and then we will create a case, pass it to him. As soon as he gets the results, he sends it to us.
So you can call Mastercard directly?
Well, actually, when this is investigated, this is going a very practical way. If you have there's a consumption concern, and the guy is something like getting information, and there's a dialogue. During that dialogue, you have access to.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Lord. To use the same example that you used with redistribution, you said that a person may have a domestic connection and then at the back of their home, they have some little garage or welding, whatever. I know you have a domestic rate and you have a commercial rate, right?
Right.
Wouldn't that garage supposed to be commercial rate?
That's a very...
So you're actually robbing DOMLEC?
Yes, that's very insightful.
You're
very,
actually robbing DOMLEC that way?
Yeah, it's very insightful because the domestic rate is a lower rate than the industrial or commercial. So the activity, whereas you are registered with us as a domestic or residential customer, and you are being charged, though you are still paying for the consumption, but the difference is you are paying for what the workshop or the garage consumes. You are being charged at the domestic rate instead of the higher industrial or commercial rate, which is what is happening. So that's a very insightful observation.
Providing the service.
Sorry?
That is you provided the service from the garage. Because it's a garage.
A workshop.
Because you could have a garage yourselves doing everything.
Well, that is also interesting, yes. Yeah. Because I suppose you could be doing your own domestic work there, but it may be a case where it's a furniture workshop you have there selling to your friend at the back and all that. So the investigation will determine the nature of the activity. Yes.
So why would DOMLEC charge a higher rate for commercial than for residential, when in fact maybe commercial buildings actually consume more electricity and as such DOMLEC would be making a lot more money? Okay.
Well, I suppose that is a question not so much for DOMLEC, but the IRC and the Act, because the rate right now, well not right now, for a while now, DOMLEC has been engaged with the IRC in an exercise called the tariff review. The rates, when customers complain that the rates are high, they have not been changed since 2007. Tell me which business that has been selling at the same price since 2007. There's only one, DOMLEC. Since 2007, the rates have not gone. So short. Well, okay. Go ask Let me take that back. Let me take that back, yes. But DOMLEC is one of the few has not benefited from an increase in rates of pricing since 2007. But those prices, the tariff is not set by DOMLEC. Of course, we submit a proposal to the IRC, and then the IRC determines what is a fair rate for the different categories. So the question as to why I see your point in terms of from an economic standpoint, maybe the consideration should be given to the commercial being lower. But the IRC's, I suppose, their chief motivation is protecting the interests of the consumer, the customer, and generally the domestic customer. There are others.
I think I want to add something to your answer for this question. What happens is that when you have, for instance, a workshop with motors and all that thing, it consumes a lot more vase. Alright? Motors and stuff consume a lot more vase. As in regard, well, you have to be a little more technical minded to understand that. As in regard to lights or your fridge at your home, now it costs DOMLEC more to produce vase. I know that because I've had the power station, so I have a little more knowledge on that. So that is one of the reasons why the commercial is a little bit more than the domestic.
Yeah, you go, Stevenson.
But to add to that is also risky, because if you have a workshop, you need sometimes to wire three phase and then you run in single phase.
Exactly, yes. The lady at the back.
Hi, morning. I'm realizing that there needs to be considerably more dialogue between planning and DOMLEC.
Right.
Because if you are talking, right now we are seeing an increase in density in certain communities and in city, suburban areas where typically maybe 40 years ago you law, you have 3, 4-story buildings going up. That has implications for safety in where it relates to contact with existing poles and lines, and how we address those situations. If it need be that we in plan, between planning and DOMLEC, we have to sort of provide maybe a stipulated setback for buildings in relation to poles like what we have for roads. But also in terms of, like you, Mr. Edison was saying earlier on, planning your construction, because if every other application we approve, one by one you're getting this pole needs to move, that pole needs to move, this pole needs to move, I can see that being quite a sort of hard type of way to address our development going forward. So I think there needs to be some serious dialogue between the two entities, that we have a set plan of action for how we look at even approvals of plans, and where poles are located. If it is known that we are asking people to even identify where the poles are located when you send in your plan for your development, so at least we can at least alert DOMLEC that we are approving this plan. You may have a potential to, so we can have a schedule.
I'm glad you said that. That's a very important point. To the extent that I wrote to the planning division a few years ago, asking for that sort of interaction between planning and us. Because as you rightly pointed out, at the point where somebody is ready to build, his contractor is on site, we are being told that, especially when they're going up at that point to relocate a line, relocate a pole. I have written to the planning division for the plans to be submitted to us, to DOMLEC, even before it is approved, so you could have feedback, and you could. I'm not sure if DOMLEC sits on the board. No, we don't have. Okay.
So maybe that is something we have to look at, because, for example, on board we have land and service, we have agriculture, we have certain entities, public goods, but there's a government offices, but maybe we need to consider incorporating the utility companies.
I would strongly recommend that a representative of the utilities, at least, if not each of them separately, at least one of them. And thankfully, the planning division on 2 occasions did submit to us. In fact, it was so long after when I saw the plan, I wasn't sure what to do with it, because there was no letter saying what it was before, and we sent it to the engineering department for that. So y'all did respond in the last maybe 2 years, twice. They sent the plans to us before approval so that they could get feedback, and our engineering department did provide feedback in terms of pole location and so on.
Even as it relates to the density of certain structures, because what I'm observing is, for example, if you have let's say in Roseau, you're going to put a commercial building that is 4 stories high. It has implications for the transmission of whether you have to readjust your loading and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, so when you go back, tell them yes, we will have before more interaction with your department. Thank you very much.
I think the suggestion is a very welcome suggestion, something that we can look at and consider it seriously. We do appreciate. Thank you very much, Mr. Moses, for the presentation. At this time, I want to continue and we dive into the final that we will present. He is a very challenging young man. He likes competition. He likes to win. He's competitive. And as a matter of fact, I think he's preparing for a brand event on Tuesday. So to you, I present our T&D engineer, Mr. Kimon Jean-Baptiste.
Good morning. Good morning. That one before me, I think I'm not sure if I even really need to present. However, I know certain questions that pop up requested Kimon to answer. And as such, my slide will take into consideration some of the concerns we have will be met with. I am supposed to give a brief overview on the system and generation as it relates to from the power station to your homes. So based on the people I see sitting here, I'm not sure if anybody here would know all that happened. And I will still run for it, and based on time, I know we were supposed to end at 11, and I'm starting my presentation at 11. So I will, however, go through briefly to enlighten us and to touch on various points. This, you could pretty much go to the next slide. This basically gives, I use more pictures in my presentation, I don't like to. I will explain, and I can see a picture, there are 1,000 words, so we can tell more than the words that I write in here. But I can explain and ask. I hope we can dialogue too, because I will be short, however, you can ask your questions as we go, because the conversation, I'm not a lecturer. So this is basically a basic overview of the system from the generating plant all the way to our home, based on diesel or hydro that we really have on our generating plant. We have our power plants. We step up to transmission voltage, which, as we heard earlier, on 11,000 volts, which we basically transmit from the power stations to various locations on island, and we get them to the usable voltage levels, be 400 or 230 volts for the home. We spoke of three-phase and single-phase. That's basically what we're speaking of. I think everybody has to understand that on that. So we don't need to tell them. For the utilities here and the builders and so on, we had some issues with identification of some of our infrastructure. Sometimes DOMLEC get a lot of complaints, a lot of calls. DOMLEC, your line low, and DOMLEC, you need to come and check this line, and we send out our linesmen to go and investigate below line of the hazard that the public see outside there. And just search, we send a guy from here to Grand Fork to deliver a low line. It's not DOMLEC line. We have to fit the fuel and the man hours and everything to just go and identify that it's not a DOMLEC line. Come back to contact digital contact to. Pretty much on our system we have two different types of lines that we use: covered basically and bare and covered conductors. We have covered conductors both in HV and LV. I don't have a picture right here to show you covered conductors at the HV levels. However, any one of you familiar with going through the Layo Valley area, the majority of the Layo Valley area is covered HV conductor that we have there, and actually bonded around 1 feet apart from each other there. We usually, there are different types of these HV conductors called true wire. Some of them we had a brand name Hendrix and stuff like that, but they are not considered insulation to say protect the, like, it is a level of insulation, but it's not protected enough to have the public tamper with that type of lines, based on the deviation and the level of voltages that we transmit throughout these lines. We consider insulated line one that is shielded, like our HV conductors that we run underground, which has the core for carrying voltages and power, and around that core would have some level of insulation and earth shield. Unless it is not shielded, we consider it as an insulated cable. So that's how we call it covered conductors, HVs. On the right of your screen, you'll see LV, covered conductor. We usually refer to it as ABC. The acronym stands for aerial bond conductor. This is a type of conductor that DOMLEC have went into for a couple of years now. In essence, it helped us a lot after Maria, I should say, since the insulation of that conductor is very robust, that gives us the opportunity to even use them along trees and buildings. There are a few instances that we've run it along buildings in town where we could not find another opportunity to pass it away from that building. And the level of insulation provided by these conductors for the level of voltage that they carry are pretty much safe for that kind of work. This, in essence, changed somewhat the level of limit of approach to these conductors compared to the bare conductors. So in essence, when I reach to this slide of limit of approach for trained and untrained personnel towards our lines, our conductors, they will basically be speaking to exposed conductors or exposed parts. What I'll explain before. Yeah. Continuing with identification of our equipment, this year, for most of you that know already, there are two step-down transformers. One is pad mount, which is predominantly used in the underground system, and the one to the right is a pole mount transformer, which we use to feed customers at both levels on the grid. Domestic, commercial, the pad mount transformer right here you find, as I said, mostly within the city area or on larger construction sites and areas requiring larger capacity. You can just go down. This picture, I'm running through rather quickly, this picture represents the internal HV side of a pad mount transformer that we see here. This transformer will be considered a dead front pad mount transformer. Dead front meaning all the conductors internal on the HV side. If you were to open it as you see the picture, it's an open transformer there. You will see no exposed live parts in it, and therefore it is considered a dead front. You don't have the capability of coming in contact with the live parts in that section of the transformer. That's just for information purposes. Alright, so we limit the safety part of it as it relates to limit of approach. This picture will illustrate approach for our trained personnel. To some extent, it can be used for some of our contractors on the line. Based on the level of training, the circle that you see, dotted line circle that you see represent the primary zone or primary work zone for trained personnel, which in essence is 4 feet. 4 feet. You could move to the next slide and read some stuff finally. A qualified person, employees who have received formal training to perform specific tasks in close proximity to energized lines and apparatus. That means our linemen. Like I said, some contractors do have the capability, however, based on the number of contract workers that they have that have not gone through the training. You having one lineman that is trained to do that would not be be certified by DOMLEC to work on a system at these levels, because as it relates to safety, having someone in a bucket truck up there working with him is dangerous and limits. You need to have somebody specific looking on just in case something were to go wrong. And so you must have somebody of the same training or higher here to monitor and provide the guidance that we may not be seeing in blind spots or stuff like that. So a contractor, though he may have one lineman or two linemen that are trained to operate like that, as long as you do not have adequate staff to do that kind of work, you will not be granted permission at DOMLEC to have that link of approach. And that photo that we saw here is based on our HV 11 toes 11,000 volts operation. Right? Like I say, I'm not a lecturer, you can ask questions on time. Alright? The primary zone for qualified employees is defined as that area that is within 4 feet in any direction from energized lines and equipment between 600 volts to 12,470 volts. This does not apply to grounding portions of the piece of equipment. Like I said, it does not apply to any part of the equipment that is tapped to ground. On our system, even including our LV system or LV circuits, we have grounded sections, like the neutral line will be grounded, the transformer bodies will be grounded, both HV and LV capacitors as well. We have grounded sections of that for protection. And the 4 feet perimeter of the old zone does not include the area that is grounded. The 4 feet is from the point of live contact to where the operator is. Understood? Unqualified person shall not be allowed to approach closer to live exposed electrical lines or apparatus than the distance is specified below, unless under close supervision of a qualified person. Now, this diagram brings us to a question I was asked earlier on. And it stems back from, as you can see on both pictures, you have a yield attached to it, 1961, 1977, 1989. The latest we have in the change of these limits was done in 1990. Maybe limit reviews of that now, because we have how many years gone now. However, based on the levels of the HV voltages that we work with, those are the horizontal and vertical clearances to buildings that we are required, the minimum limits, minimum clearances that we are required to have our lines. And we're talking about the open HV conductors. Yeah, that was a question.
What about you have to discuss an answer about the diagonal? Not necessary?
The diagonal would either be passing alongside the building or above, so we look at the lowest distance from the smallest distance. Alright, so in essence, for horizontal distance away from a building, we look at power voltages of 7.5 feet is the minimum we should have our lines across from the HV uncovered lines. And above the roof, 12.5 feet. That's for our regulations.
My whole concern to that is, or my question was, you have these lines running over a residential home. The tree falls and bursts that line. What risk does that pose to that resident in that house if that line doesn't trip off the system?
That last part that you said is the most important part to your own question. When I made reference to it earlier on, as it relates to our protection system. And as with everything, nothing is foolproof. However, our protection system for the past time, I can say, we could count on it to trip, because we've seen a number of times where these instances, within milliseconds, we have trips and causing sometimes some serious power outages within the region. Depending on where your building is, it should operate even faster than certain areas of the system. I'm just saying that. for instance, you said, oh, we are building in Shopwood. The line that is passing over your property in Shopwood could either be a feeder or it could be an interconnector. Interconnector meaning a line coming from the power station to power station. Since you said I don't do a transformer bank, I highly doubt it will be an interconnector. We'll feed up interconnectors like that. Alright, so it will be being fed from a feeder. However, the contact with the tree that you said earlier on, the contact with the tree means a root to ground. And at that point, the clearances from that are supposed to be milliseconds. So before the line should reach your house, after it bursts or even before it bursts, that line is supposed to trip. Alright, so it should be a deadline for it on your house. In any case, based on like in the East Coast, due to salt and that kind of thing, we have seen lines fail from corrosion, and it would not be something causing it to drop off. It could be wind or stuff like that. But like with the same protection system, as soon as it is contact, it is supposed to trip off like within milliseconds. And we've been revising our protection system pretty often. Sometimes we have to be changing settings in system controls ever so often, because our system, our network is a small one, and you understand that part of it. Our network is a small one compared to big cities and other countries and so on. And that makes it more ticklish as it relates to certain settings that we have to use for protection on the system based on how it is. We speak to our transmission system and so on. There's no transmission system without a substation. We don't have one with a substation in DOMLEC. So we literally have a foolproof distribution system for the country. And this changes the calculations that need for protection as it relates to the sensitivity and so on. So sometimes a lot of times, we overcompensate based on the nature of our system with our protection system.
Question. You said that the lines will strip with impact.
What's that?
You said it will strip with impact. If there is no impact, for example, as you mentioned in East Coast with corrosion, would it still trip?
Yeah, as long as it touch, as long as it make contact with ground, that is when it will trip. That's why I indicated in that instance. If it were to burst and drop off, it would
after it hits the roof, then
yeah, instant. So that's what we're speaking of. Clear on that slide?
Everybody clear it up?
Roadways. Vertical clearances for roadways accessible to trucks, traffic, for open supply conductors at voltages of 0 to 750 volts is 16.5 feet. So we should not have LV or lines passing over the highway, anything lower than 16.5 feet. In essence, and that speaks to HVA, however, like 25 foot, however, HVA like 45 foot. Alright, so we would be within legal boundaries and limits to run the line on lower thing, but as the young lady there from planning indicated, there are certain things that we do based on history and based on changes within the environment. If we were to run our HV lines on 32 poles, often we'll have to come and change and raise and many instances as well, we have to employ 55 foot poles and 60 foot poles in certain areas just to get clearances that we need from buildings and certain structures and so. However, we could operate within that 60 feet.
Doesn't increasing the height of the pole also increase the exposure to wind hazard during hurricanes?
Yeah, technically. However, I am not sure which is more risky to DOMLEC infrastructure. We're looking at the drag on the wind as it relates to the I'm not sure which you would consider more risky for DOMLEC. Really, high pole and the wind drag, which we can build and which we have been building. We have engaged some stiffening measures as it relates to the grid for support and guiding and the size and quality of the pole. We have moved from class 4 poles to class 2 poles, as you see that in itself. The classes level speak to the different loading capacities of the pole and so on, and the structures, the resistance to wind and drag and that kind of thing. What I was getting at, to me and to us, the greater risk of the low pole is the flying roof into the lines than the wing itself.
You know, the roof can climb many heights.
No, what I'm saying is the probability that you get in contact with the poles at a lower level than up there is, you understand? So objects flying into the poles and into the line is of a greater hazard to DOMLEC technology than just the bare wind. Because even after Maria, we still had a number of poles that were up and still be, you understand me, with nothing flying into them. However, in the residential areas, you find majority of them going down, but it's objects that flow into them that literally broke some of the poles and drag the lines and that kind of thing. So we design with loading and that kind of thing in mind. Alright, let's go to HBC. Yeah. This time we'll deal with the challenges. This is a little dark, but I chose to put it up there so that we could sensitize we public new planning as well. We could maybe take that back as well. It seems old, however, that is called, we call it a backpack. It is a vacuum HV switch we have under the city of Roseau. Presently in the vicinity of Woodstone. So we have a very HV switch right there. That has been here for a couple of years before Maryland, and it was not. It's still it's kind of strong. However, the issue that comes with that photo. And
you will have to take up with city council.
and
unfortunately, not yet.
To zoom it in to minimum, so just this mouse. This, what you see here, transformer. This is a Barnum transformer. Alright? So let's say something would happen in down the street, in Woodstone Mall, some fire. Most likely government right now would have to shut a portion of Roseau if you want to address that quickly, instead of going and pull a breaker in that transformer. Alright? Worse off if we were to have a fire right there. This lovely young lady is sitting right next to it. That's just the next picture in the same area, right? Now, under here, which you will see clearly, is that is the picture we have above us. We have the manhole right here, and she's literally sitting on the manhole for that backpack. 11,000 volts on the bottom.
I think the owners should be on DOMLEC.
I knew that was coming too.
Okay, and the owners should be on DOMLEC. And to approach the authorities to ensure that.
And that has been done for years.
Okay, so but I know DOMLEC have a lot of clout.
Assumptions.
Yes. I think that is something that you guys need to address. And I just want to
I can speak and
one second. And I want to take that a little further. Given the extensive network that you guys have underground also, why is it that you're not making, and to add to that, the number of residents that are being built in Roseau, and they seem to be going higher and higher. Why is it that government hasn't taken a full initiative to put the rest of the network underground?
One word I can answer that with one word.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course. One word. I can answer that with one word. Because you would have seen, and you said it.
So my question to you is, are we in a safety forum, all right?
Yeah.
So I think safety is a priority to you. So the cost shouldn't matter as much as the safety.
Why would you put it that way? Shouldn't matter. If you cannot afford to do it now, you try to mitigate against the issues around it, alright? But if you can't afford to do it, fine, all well and good.
Rest the case.
Rest the case.
Question, with the authority that you address?
City Council, letters were written to the Minnesota City Council a number of times, and I wish for us there because they know that we have reached out to various people for clarity. That is just one of it, right? And I choose to use that one there. Also, we have most of our
question. In that area, does it have proper signage in terms of like a sign from sign and posted on the wall or something?
On the transformers and lighting, all of these things. On it, you can see it now. Alright? Apart from this one, you find a number of these equipment that we have in the city. Sad to say it that way, but they're like public convenience. Right all around it and behind it, you have vehicles twisting and sleeping in the area. So it is not very good on the linemen, but it's not good on their nose, it's not good on their eyes. A lot needs to be done about it.
I need to request a respirator from
Health and safety. Oh, that is health and safety.
No, so you don't know, they confirm their attendance by saying.
Alright? So those are certain things that need addressing, and we so do need help from the various authorities to deal with that, because I know she was asked to move already and would pack up and stuff, and like 2 weeks time back there. Every time you have to go. You see that part I didn't know.
All the people on the sidewalk, people on the sidewalk.
I didn't know that part. Alright,
Yes, if we are going to come and tell you they need to move etc. I don't want AD back in the system.
yeah, well actually I can speak to when that was being done. Request was made to the city council to barricade it up, and they said because it's a cellular cancer, they will not give permission to it.
Okay,
So up to DOMLEC, we will control most of these things.
Just to paint it itself, like you paint a bright yellow paint around the zone. I don't know, I was asking.
It's a try, but I'm saying this.
I vote the same way.
I would decide on it and you don't
It's not only the design. We have had several consultations with this with the people to highlight the danger and all of that, which they say they clearly understand and so on. But more action is
You spoke earlier about overhead lines. But my main concern is your underground lines. What depth you classify as the common classify as safe within the city?
Within the city?
Yeah, knowing that there are all other utilities below there.
In essence, I know that when some of the agencies were being run back in the day, we had gone as far as 14 feet down. we have done some of our conductors. There are certain restrictions as it relates to how far you can get based on the city, how there is, and so on. However, the DOMLEC conductors, from what I know, would be the PDPs. So even your water lines and them will never be as deep as the burial of conductors. The depth, we were the most shallow we should put our docks for these lines is 4 feet, I think 4 feet, 6 inches thereabout, I think it was supposed to be. However, we don't stick to that because of the other utilities that are supposed to be above. So in essence, we are usually way below. I know for even by the market area there, it's even deeper than 4 feet. By just coming up that bridge. Yeah. And as he said, indicate we do use 2 levels of concrete. Some instances, if the distance is not as deep as we would like it to be, we sometimes use a thin layer of concrete. So you don't just meet a tip, but you, whatever equipment you use, you need a layer of concrete that will indicate that something is there. Can you understand me?
Earlier on you spoke about your lines, let's say for example, the guy who had to go to Grand Fork. How would a civilian be able to identify DOMLEC line or let's say flow or digital line and be able to say?
Well, thankfully now, both flow and digital have moved away from most of the big trunk cables that they used to use before. And some of the trunk cables or the communication line used to roll somewhat like this. Yeah. But pretty much they move into fiber, which is just a round conductor. All of our overhead conductors presently would be either 3-phase like this or single phase like this, just a smaller conductor size with two conductors. This one would have 4 conductors. However, this would be 2 conductors, and all of them, including the LV circuit or the service lead. Service lead would be just slightly smaller, 25mm or 16mm. These LV the LV network cables will be 17mm. So it's based on the sizing if you're familiar with this.
Okay, so let's just say the basic, the average being.
The polytwisted conductors.
Okay, but let's just say, for example, hypothetically speaking, the average human being would not have that knowledge like I do now. Mm-hmm. So isn't there like a way to say, let's say like color code, to say that line is different from flow or digital and this is the main?
Back in the days we had some black and white servicing or some black servicing for a yellow strip for the phase on there. However, these conductors didn't do very well with our temperature. So they used to crack off and so we can usually use that. So these are more robust and they withstand the elements much better. So we tend to stick with it. But however, our lines will be twisted while flow and digital will just have one constant conductor. That is the best way I can basically explain it.
But I think one of the things that can help too, that is the driving one, is public outreach programs, so we can educate the public on those sort of matters. We have every year around the Pacific we go to the schools and we teach them about electrical hazards and different components, just like we do now. So that is just one of the ways that we can get that information out there. So we really have to go out to the public, have this public outreach, different communities and pass on that information. But that's a very good question you're asking.
John,
yes, sir.
also to add to what you said, right? our lines would come minimum two or more, 2 or 3 lines, except it is a corporate single conductor. But all our lines have this come minimum 2, whereas the other utilities they come from 1 line.
This is a brief video I have. Yes, it's a brief video I have of something that happened actually last week.
But so all these years we're going to see, we were clear. That is the first one. But we still have a lot of material and wood and thing on the ground here. So we're still going in. And this is the wood in the middle. That's what we're going there. That is the north side of the way. There's one that's still on fire, that's how we need the water. Put all those terraces. And when we put it back up on that side, so we definitely need the water for that. And then, just like I this up this one. Still have fire sparking up there, and we have some smoke. So I put this on the bush, this one started to fail. So, when we have this done, we have to make an asphalt. So now we don't even be but around the poles themselves are clear. But as the vegetation are burning, the heat I guess from that, set them poles on fire. We continue a little bit with the extinguisher to the way the winds blowing up here. All of us we need water for it. Like this control, and the control. Here over here. That's the others. Definitely need water.
Alright, so this is something that we are faced with, especially during this hot season and every day, I should say. DOMLEC, within its capacity, have employed different means of trying to control these type of hazards and protect our hardware. Over the years, we've been doing some fire plating and fire guard on most of our poles. You'll hear in his explanation that around the pole was clear. That formed part of our vegetation management program, and every year we pass and around the dry season and before the dry season, we pass and trim within 6 feet around the poles. So in case of bushfire or this kind of fire, you don't get a direct contact with it. However, this fire was so much of a high blaze, and that was in the hill, like area. The blaze was so high that it caught the pole above the plating area, and it reached down around the pole and higher. And well, I cannot point fingers, but based on what we saw, the fire came from all the way down the hill. It seemed to be set ablaze by someone putting bush on the foot of the hill. Yes, we have bushfires annually, but a lot of the fires that we see managing and materials down there, a lot of times they are caused by negligence and fire extinguisher. These kind of things we need to have the public be more aware of and stop that, especially in the dry season. Right now we have proposed to and changes over the hill up July, and there's area truck cargo. So that was just really with the awareness as it relates to the fires and so on. Really and truly. It was just one line here. We would have experienced a lot of these kind of things as we go through and so on. we expect all first responders to be our heroes. Yes, however, they need not to put themselves in danger or in harm's way to try and, well, they need to be safe so that they can save us. Alright? I'll put it that way. They need to be safe so that they can save us. I know the fire and ambulance services has a routine that if you have a house fire, so DOMLEC will get a call to be on site before they move on. So it's like they get a call for a house fire, they themselves will call DOMLEC. Sometimes locals call DOMLEC already in a house fire. We would get a call for the fire ambulance services saying they're going to respond to a fire and that we should come and contain any electrical issues that is there. So that is good communications that we employ and we would like to keep it up, and in a sense, at the very least, we would say the first responders should not leave the site until he has taken all reasonable precautions to ensure the site is safe or secure. And that is something that we try to encourage to keep the public safe. Thank you.
Question. My question is in line of your job cable you got. That's the cable you.
Yeah, it's
that's right. I know in the past, a long time ago, you used to have a fuse on top of the line, top of the pole. So whenever something happens, the whole it will trip. But I see that DOMLEC has done away with that. Your protection system, does it protect the drop line as well? The drop line short?
Yeah, well, we employ
system.
Different parts of protection. So what you're speaking to is a fuse of LED, right? And that's what you could see physically, so you can say yes, it is, we don't have it now. Right now we employ what we call CSP transformers. So the transformer itself has a circuit breaker in it. So as soon as it falls beyond, short or something beyond, I think you usually have that breaker in the transformer chip. And the lineman would either come and reset it with a switch pole or so, and that kind of thing. So those are different protection levels that we have. So you don't have the hard fuse on the fault clearing time of a fuse and a breaker are two different things. And show you.
Okay. My second question is with your three-phase meter, you have this metal box. Why don't DOMLEC use some sort of gland or insulated material when you knock out where your cable enters? Why DOMLEC don't use that?
We should. I know we have a specific kind of potty for that. We have a specific potty for it to do, and one that impedes even insects also from getting in and is kind of helpless.
Yes, but the thing is that when you look at some of DOMLEC's installation on the meter, you have the line maybe going from the top, it's not pinned down, but enters in the hole. Now when you have the wind flapping this cable, are you going to get an insulated breakdown? Why don't cable DOMLEC don't use something like an adapter, a PVC adapter? Why is that?
We're supposed to, and if you know these cases, I mean, once we are aware of it, then we think I would not, as the TND engineer, go and visit every site that a contractor or DOMLEC staff work to the supervisor would have to verify that each of us is incorporated that kind of thing. However, some things like that do suitfully crack, but that doesn't mean we are not requested to do it, or they will not request to do it. Like I said, we have both a port here that we use to block out these things, as well as they are supposed to be plans for such.
Well, I make reference to the meters, to the line that's installed.
Yes, your three-phase meter is attached to a metal box.
Yeah.
Now when you knock off the gland, the cable is just in the hole, and the engine is sharp.
They're supposed to be, safety aspect of it was also supposed to be PVC pipe. That's supposed to be screwed. But we take note of this, and I think we have a situation and we are trying to resolve it. And the potties to prevent these stuff.
But you see, if you use the gland, the rubber gland, it'll need the potting.
Depends. The type of conductors they have, not one round conductor that go inside. They are pretty different. So the port will fit in between. So that's why like this one maybe is like that. The port will fit in right around each strand. But no till.
Yeah. I'll ask a question, but I think it has to be in relation with the electrical division also. For buildings that get certified for DOMLEC by the electrical division, it states on the form, on the certificate form, that after 5 years, yes, the electrical connections should be re-inspected. Installation should be re-inspected. Is that a practice that is employed by overseen by DOMLEC to ensure that I've seen a lot of inspection, I've seen a lot of installations that look at from the day of the
well, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. A nice question. I like it. But in essence, you started off by saying electrical division. DOMLEC authority to direct electrical division. In fact, DOMLEC by law, once we get a certificate of connection for a building, we are supposed to connect them. The only time we will choose not to connect them is all guys go there and see something physically that is unsafe, and we see it is not safe to do so. However, that is in itself a legal issue. You understand me? So it's like we cannot say you connect that customer when you have a certification from the reading or the testing agency saying that it is certified to be connected onto the grid. So unless we have concrete proof that, that is not safe, and I know some people that have been in certain situations and decided, no, that can't happen. You understand? Because on all levels, certain things pass through the cracks.
And I believe also in a better position than you in dealing with that. Is a government institution.
Yeah. Right? But yeah. Thanks kindly. Thanks for your listening. Yeah.
Much insight, and your questions very interactive. Some of the suggestions will be considered, even though they will appear to be very tough. We will definitely give them consideration. Yes. Before we end, I want to leave a few safety tips with you. Replace damaged, cracked, loose, faulty forward cords. Replace. All right. Keep electrical devices away from sources of water to avoid potential shock hazard. Avoid overloading outlets. Unplug appliances when not in use to avoid risk or overheating. Use the proper wattage for lamps and lighting fixtures. Always follow appliances instructions to improve electrical safety. And lastly, give your appliances proper space for air circulation to avoid overheating. Alright, it's been indeed a pleasure having you. I want to extend on behalf of management and staff sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for taking some time off from your busy schedule to be with us. At this time, the forum has come to an end, and I would like to let you know that there's a few snacks for the visitors. So we love you all. Visitors will have some refreshments before you end. Thank you again. Have a lovely evening.
Alright everyone, this is going to be the ending of our live broadcast. We just want to thank each and every one of you who came out and support, and also being a listening ear for the health and safety of the panel. And once again, we just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and support. I do hope that everyone here who viewed and listened was able to acknowledge and learn something new and take precautions of potential dangerous electrical hazards. Once again, it's going to be the ending of our live broadcast. We just want to thank each and everyone for coming out. Do have a pleasant and